All right, and to further discuss this, we are joined in studio by Project Officer at Action Support Center, Priti Mugabe, member of the Zimbabwe Solidarity Forum, and Peace Repression Monitor, Prince Abenga, as well as our regular political analyst on Zimbabwean issues. That's, of course, Mr. Tino Mambewu. Thank you very much, gentlemen and lady, for joining me in studio here and for coming to Afro Breakfast this morning.
Thank you. And,
all right, I'm going to start here, coming from my left-hand side. The big story, before we get to the elections today, of course, I do know that Zimbabweans are currently in line and waiting to vote at this time. But let's start with what happened over the weekend. Mugabe, of all people, saying that elections will not be free and fair. I need your analysis on this, please. Is he right? I mean, addressing media for the first time in 7 months since he was ousted. What's made him suddenly, I suppose, so emboldened, if that's the word to use? Let's start here on the left with you, Prince.
Thank you. I think the silence of former President Mugabe was not a peaceful silence since the 15th of November last year. Mugabe feels humiliated by his own generals. He is a former henchman, and it is done out of not a goodwill, because he is disgruntled. He's not happy. He was not ready to go. And he waited for the right time to hit back. And that's what he did yesterday.
You know, he said in December he was planning to step down in any case. Any truth to that, do you think? You know, he says he was just humiliated.
Mugabe was not ready to step down. You know, with the influence of the First Lady and all the conflict, the G40 and the smuggling the current president to South Africa, it really showed that Mugabe was not ready to go. Unfortunately for him, the wind was very strong. He couldn't resist it. But he kept quiet, not because he was in peace. He kept quiet because he waited for the right time to hit back.
Dino, to you now, those remarks by the former president, what are your thoughts?
well, it's neither here or there. Politics is a matter of permanent interests. This is the political world where we find ourselves in. I think President Mugabe has done the people of Zimbabwe justice in terms of telling them where his vote lies. I think it is his constitutional right to come out in the open and indicate that he is ready to vote for change. What we have seen since the coup, not so coup, that occurred in November is cosmetic changes that are happening, and the people of Zimbabwe did not benefit anything except for the freedom of expression that they find themselves with at the moment. But in terms of economic benefit, we have not seen anything. To make matters worse, by the time in November, 2017, when Mnangagwa came into power, the people could draw $100 or $50 from the ATM. But as we can see right now, people are spending 5 days to get either $10 or $20 from the ATMs. So in terms of the economy, Mugabe has failed, and that is the most critical issues to the people of Zimbabwe. People of Zimbabwe are more interested in the bread and butter issues. So coming back to Mugabe, I think he has done justice, and he should be he should be given the opportunity, the chance to support whichever candidate that he wants to support. And we also want to dismiss the allegations by the president, Mnangagwa, saying that voting for Chamisa is voting for Mugabe. There is nothing like that. Mnangagwa himself has sent emissaries several times to Mugabe's residence to try and get endorsement from Mugabe. But Mugabe stuck to his guns and said that I will not endorse you because you are an unconstitutional leader. That is a matter of fact that we cannot run away from. Well, the coup was a revolutionary one because it was supported by the generality of the masses. But Mnangagwa did not assume power as a result of an election. It would have been wise for Mnangagwa to consider forming a government of national unity that would have given him time to resonate with the people, not to just rush in and find himself where he is now. And he is shivering. The moment of the people has come, and we should be ready to witness change.
Ms. Ngube, I'm going to ask you the very same question. Are you of the view that that press briefing yesterday by the former president was indeed necessary? We're hearing Tino saying that Mugabe has done justice to the country. You think that his voice was necessarily, sort of relevant yesterday? I mean, I'm sure there were some people who indeed wanted to hear what he thinks of the upcoming elections, today's elections.
I think it was important. I think for me it was a strike at the last minute to show the world how the election has been done. Remember, he's been the leader for the opposition party from forever. And for him to come out and say it's not free and fair, he knows very well because he's been the one leading in playing the game. So he knows exactly what's going to happen. So I think he felt, because he's still angry, and he felt it was important to tell the world that no matter what happens, whether there's no physical violence that is being seen, but the elections are not going to be free and fair, because he knows all the strategies. He has been the coach, the leader of the whole thing for the past 37 years.
And what do you make of his decision now to abandon ZANU-PF? No surprise there, do you believe?
Mm-hmm. Like, he's bitter. He's angry like any other political leader who feels that he has been betrayed by his own people that he trusted. And of course, he believes that he's the one that started ZANU-PF. I mean, if you remember, if you go back to the history, I'm told that Mugabe was part of Nkomo's team. He was in part of, I think, information minister or something like that, back in the days when ZAPU and others were formed. So he knows the game. He's bitter because he played an important role in terms of rebuilding ZANU. And of course, then he had the support of the British and others for him to take power because of land issues. So, yeah.
I mean, what do you make of that statement by Priti, the fact that Mugabe is bitter? I mean, we heard him say that he can't vote for people who ousted him, the party that he founded. Is he not somewhat justified in his, I'm going to use your word here, in his bitterness at this point?
I think so. It is done out of bitterness. It is done because he's disgruntled. Because if Mugabe was really about doing justice to the people of Zimbabwe, more than 30 years in power, autocratic leadership, repression, oppression, violence, security services, violence, you cannot be fooled after so many years of selfish yoke in the country. Then you come out, you support the opposition. I don't think, even a child can analyze this.
I want to change gear now and to focus on today, the election. Tino, you've been here with us a couple of times leading up to these elections, and we've been talking about what to expect, what will happen, all of that. Do you look back now on what, all the analysis that you've made here on the show and go, okay, that I was wrong about, there it is, I was spot on about that one. And of course, we'll see the events unfold more and more today. But what are your views now that we're here? Today is the day.
Firstly, I would like to correct some misconceptions from my brother, because I think it's very, very important that we understand the politics in its own nature, as how it is played in terms of interests. Right. When Mnangagwa and Chiwenga undertook to bring people and tanks on the streets, their explanation was that we are targeting criminals around President Robert Mugabe. That was 9 months ago. And we were happy that the criminals that have been stealing our money are now being targeted. And we supported the process because we understood that at least criminals are being targeted. But now if we go to Zimbabwean courts and find out how many criminals were arrested and find out how many criminals were charged, there's only one minister, Undenge, who was the Minister of Energy. He has been charged and he has been sentenced for mere theft of $12,000. So is it the amount of money that warranted the involvement of soldiers, the involvement of tanks on the roads? It's not correct. So there has never been criminals around Mugabe. In any event, the criminals are the people that took power by force. The criminals are the people that are now in power because they have not been able to produce real criminals. So this is a fight within ZANU-PF for grabbing the power in Zimbabwe in an unconstitutional manner. But unfortunately, I'm one of the Zimbabweans who were fooled into thinking that this was a process driven to cleanse the government of Zimbabwe. But when Mnangagwa then announced his cabinet, he retained the very same people that were being used by Mugabe. So what they only needed was a support of the people of Zimbabwe in order to fulfill their selfish interest. Now people of Zimbabwe have seen them for who they are. Mugabe cannot be, as much as he may be bitter, He cannot be, be referred to as somebody who is trying to sway the opposition vote. If Mugabe was hated by Zimbabweans, he has got only one vote. How can the whole president react to just one vote?
Yeah.
Mnangagwa would not have gone and issued a presser saying that you must not vote for Mugabe, because if you vote for Mugabe, then you are voting for Chamisa. It means that Mugabe, as an individual, he has got support. And ZANU-PF, as an institution, it relied on the support of Mugabe, the individual. You cannot be in power for 37 years and you have no residual support. That is the support that we are fighting for. We want change. And it does not matter who is going to score the goal for us, as long as we understand that this change that is we are building is change that is going to benefit the people. I supported Mnangagwa. I think you have seen me. He has spoken, in advancing his interests. But I have seen him for who he is. He is not ready to deliver the people of Zimbabwe. He does not have the interests of the people of Zimbabwe at his heart.
I'm going to ask Priti Mncube to respond to that. I need you to tell us what you think of the two main candidates, Chamisa and Mnangagwa. What is your analysis? Are you agreeing with at this point? I see you sort of smiling and, shaking your head here and there. So I want to know where you stand on this.
I think I'll try and share based on the fact-finding mission that we did, not only what we think as individual, but what does the majority and the collective of people in Zimbabwe think. Because we sent about 10 people, peace and repression monitors to Zim, which are South African civil societies who are part of ZSF, for a fact-finding mission, to find out the feel, about how they feel about two candidates. And right now, obviously, when you look at the challenges that they came up with, that were highlighted during the visit, was that Mnangagwa is doing all he can to make sure that to the world that everything is peaceful. He is allowed, for the first time European observers are there, then everyone will think all is cool, yeah? And then we have Chamisa on the other hand, who also has the support of the people, but at the same time they have their own internal struggles with the MDC, Coupe, and their internal struggles as well. But I think the difference is that he has the support of other political leaders as well. He's young, and I think he's ambitious, of course, and he makes promises, but no one knows if those promises, when he's in power, are going to be implemented. That's another challenge. And as for Mnangagwa, for me, I think, and from what people are saying, there's nothing different he's not different from Mugabe, It's just someone who was smart enough to stage a smart coup.
You talk about this sort of fact-finding mission to sort of establish what the situation is on the ground. So I suppose you, out of all of us here, would be closer to the actual situation on the ground. So what are your views and what do you think of, those Zimbabweans who are currently in Zimbabwe right now? I mean, you're all Zimbabweans, so you would know as well, what would be happening really on the ground. But I think you're sort of closer to the situation. What is your view, your perception, and what do you understand to actually be happening?
I'll share a bit and I'll ask Abenge, because he was one of the people who were on the ground. They went in different areas. Yeah. But what we know is that today is a day where you have a group of people that are going to vote ZANU because they love ZANU. You have a group of people that are going to vote MDC because they love MDC. And then you have a larger number of people that are going to vote ZANU because they're scared. Okay. There's a feeling.
What about those who still feel a sort of link or sort of still feel some kind of attachment to the former president, Robert Mugabe? Will they not go after yesterday's speech? I'm going to go with, what my former president is going with.
I think they will, but it depends on individuals at the moment, you know. But most of them, I'm sure they will follow what he said. But I think what is key here is to look at this other group that, ZANU has instilled a lot of fear in people. And you still have people that believe that when I'm casting my vote, someone is watching, And of course, there's been, Mnangagwa has been using, buying groceries, to buy people's votes and all that. But I think that one also is another group of people that are going to buy because they're hungry, they want food, they're being promised things. But there's another group that I think we always neglect. That's the group that is scared. The people that were attacked in 2008, who have their children or young people came to South Africa, some are working in the farms because since then, we are even scared to go back to Zimbabwe.
Yeah.
And I remember one of my colleagues went to Zim and he said to his grandmother, this time you must vote Chamisa. And the grandmother said, my child, you to stay in South Africa. And I'm in Zimbabwe. I'm not going to vote for Chamisa. I'm going to vote for ZANU because I want to be safe.
Sure. Talk to us then about this fear that Priti speaks of. Is that accurate in terms of people who are still, I suppose what you're alluding to is sort of scarred still from the 2008 elections? What are your views?
Yeah, we spent 10 days on the ground in Zimbabwe, and we saw the situation actually, how it looks like. In the rural setup, as Priti just said, people live in fear. They don't feel protected. They don't feel safe. And they are forced to vote for the one who's powerful. And the powerful in the rural setup is the ZANU-PF. So, you know, there are so many things that are not promising for so far, and so that this election, the current election, can be called free and fair. In the rural setup, people are living in fear. I saw the voters' roll. It has a lot of irregularities. You know, people who are living in, for example, in Chinoi, Mashonaland West. I was based in Chinoi. People who are living in Ward 14, it's called Matikatika Farm. This person is living here in the farm, and the farm is in Ward 14, but in the voters' roll, her name is on Ward 1. Where is she going to vote? And the name of the person is Rosemary. And, you know, they didn't put the family name, they just put Rosemary, and she found herself to be in Ward 1, while she's living in Matikatika Farm, which is Ward 14. That's the voters' roll. That's going to be used for the election that's going to happen today. There is an independent in Chinoi, for example, is the son of the stalwart, the struggle stalwart, Jacob Nyandoro. His son, he grew up in ZANU-PF house. He has never taken membership of ZANU-PF, but he was surprised to read in the Herald, the newspaper, that he is expelled from ZANU-PF. He was very surprised. How, me to be expelled? I've never been a ZANU-PF member. I know my father, he was a stalwart. My father fought alongside with Joshua Nkomo and the others. So why people from ZANU-PF should write in the news that I'm expelled from the party? Where did they get the information that I was a ZANU-PF member?
Yeah, so sort of propaganda of sorts as well.
You understand.
Pushed
so
through the media.
There are so many irregularities. That's one side. On the other side, the president, the current president, Mnangagwa, wanted to distance himself from Mugabe's rogue deeds. You know, Mrambatina and so on, the things that happened in previous elections. So he has been trying to be democratic, but the pressure, given that the opposition is very grounded, that democratic attitude is waning, is dwindling. And you have incidences of violence, intimidation, and bullying, threats here and there in the rural setup, not in urban environment. That's what's happening currently.
All right. You know, Dino, I want to bring you in here. You know, we're talking about, all sorts of irregularities, but there was something that in particular caught my attention over the weekend with regards to Nelson Chamisa, the reports about the fact that he may be disallowed to continue due to the fact that he violated the electoral code, the rule about no campaigning a day before elections. Will that sort of be ignored? I mean, we're going to talk about your early projections just now, but I really want to ask that question. Will that just sort of be ignored and, people will carry on as per usual?
That assertion that Chamisa will be disqualified, it's false. It's meant to discredit voters that are going to be voting for him. He has not been charged by anybody. Our lawyers have been, the lawyers for the party have been in contact with the ZRP, And in any event, Mnangagwa has also done his own campaign message. He has released a video. So if we were to look at that, then all the two main candidates are in contravention of the particular law that you are referring to. So that is something that we cannot really be reading into. It's irrelevant at this point in time. The people of Zimbabwe are upbeat. I can tell you that I've been receiving confirmation that people are coming out in their numbers, people are voting. And we also want to thank the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission, because in some areas they've been allowing people to vote speedily. Yeah. But there's been concerns over the ink, where people say, no, we are scratching the ink, is coming off. And that is making people think that probably that...
I've seen some of those fingerprints. Yes. I don't think you can easily take it off. I've seen it on social media. All right, I've only got about 2 minutes. So very quickly, early projections and what you assume to be what we get, what happens after these elections. I mean, I did read, and as our bulletins have been saying, that the two leading contenders here, Chamisa and Mnangagwa, are neck and neck. I don't know if that's how you see things. So let's start here. Prince, you tell me, how do you see this playing out?
Yeah, this election is a landmark election because it is without Mugabe. And I'm not very strong enough to be a prophet, so because it is a very unpredictable election.
I'd say. All right. I think Tino might have a stronger view on this.
We are expecting Nelson Chamisa to get at least 60% of the vote.
Okay.
The MDC alliance, 60%, yes.
Okay, we're going to be calling you back in a couple of days. Pretty, your view?
For me, I'm not sure, the system. Because I think for me, no matter how many people come out, go and vote, and we know ZANU has been in control of the system, has the system been changed? That's the big question mark. Then if the system was changed, then we know that it's going to be free and fair, then we can gauge according to the numbers. But right now, because the system is still the same, yeah.
All right. My many thanks to my guests then this morning. Chatting Zimbabwe, we actually went over time as well this morning. But Tino, as always, a pleasure to see you. Priti Ngube, thank you so very much for joining us in the studio. And Mr. Prince Abenga, thank you so very much for joining us on Afro Breakfast. All right.